But that trend may be changing, especially if we look at some of the indicators, one of them being central banks' record purchases of gold in 2022. Collectively, they purchased almost 1,200 metric tons of gold worth more than $70 billion. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. The U.S. has been weaponizing the U.S. dollar for the past 10 years. And there is a side of the world that is saying enough is enough. Like, we don't want to get caught, or we don't want to get ruled by the U.S. on a worldwide basis. So particularly China, but Russia and some India, some of the other countries are in the process of creating a dual system of payment, of currency, to counteract the U.S. dollar. And so these central banks are buying gold as a reserve currency. Will they use gold to back a new currency? We don't know, possibly, or a basket of currency. We don't know. Will they use a crypto kind of currency backed by the Chinese government? We don't know. What I do believe, though, is that at the end of the day, you will end up with a dual world in terms of system of payment and the currency you pay. And that's not good for the dollar. That is not good for the dollar.
It's definitely not good for the dollar, arguably not even good for the world, but that's a whole matter of perspective and perception. But this idea of a bifurcation of the global monetary system, several guests on the show have said that. One of the earliest to call it was Frank Giustra, saying that he foresees a bifurcation of the global monetary system. And we're seeing moves accelerating in that direction with the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, looking at forming their own reserve assets, as you quite rightly pointed out, potentially backed by commodities. They're having a big meeting in South Africa in August to finalize the details. Do you really think that they'll be able to get their act together, to come together, all these countries that have conflicts and challenges between them?
Yes.
You do?
I think they will. I think they will make it work. The U.S. has pushed just too much, okay? Like, they want to be the big brother for everybody. Well, some of them are saying, like, goodbye. I don't need that. And I don't want my asset to be caught up by the U.S. regulations. I don't want to be accountable to the U.S. Treasury. We're a sovereign country. And if I buy a barrel of oil from you, I don't want to have to pay it in U.S. dollars. I want to pay it in gold. I want to pay it in yuan or any other kind of currency. And I don't want to go through your SWIFT system because I don't want to get caught in your regulations. So will this happen? 100%. How? Still don't know. But I think in the next 5 years, you will see a dual system of payment and currency.
Within the next 5 years?
Yes.
So what would that mean for the dollar then?
I think that, what's precipitating the 5 years is essentially the Russia-Ukraine war. And because Russia can't sell anything, but can sell oil or gas, and it was all U.S. based, and it's all caught in the SWIFT payment, and the Chinese and the Indian, they love the Russian oil. So how are they going to pay for it? So this is what's precipitating the movement. What's going to happen to the dollar? It's going to go down. How much? Don't know. But to my mind, over the next 5 years, you will see $2,300, $2,400 gold because of that.
Because of a weaker dollar and because of the fact that central banks have been buying gold, and you do think that these countries will in some way or another have gold involved in this?
Yeah, they will diversify essentially their reserve. Okay, instead of having US dollars, they will own gold. And that's what they're doing right now.
Here, it's been very good for the United States of America to be the global reserve currency.
Yep.
A fiat currency.
Yep.
Backed by the full faith of the American government, not backed by anything else, and to be able to be printing money as and when it wants, as we saw unprecedented fiscal and monetary stimulus after COVID. That privilege is not something that the U.S. is going to want to give up without a fight. what kind of response do you expect? How do you see it playing out? I mean, if you're America, regardless of the administration, and arguably some administrations have been weaker than others, but regardless of the administration, you're still not going to want to give up your status as the top global reserve currency. So what kind of response do you get from the US?
The faith of all reserve currency is to go down, simply because of balance of payment. When you can write unlimited check, what do you think happens? Why do you think the US is now $30 trillion in debt? Because they can keep writing checks.
Sure.
Okay. Well, at some point, like, why in 1971 did Nixon have to
take us off the gold standard?
Kick the gold standard out?
Yeah.
Well, because all of a sudden France said, your exorbitant privilege of reserve currency, we want the gold. And they said, well, if they start to do that, Fort Knox will be emptied within 6 months. So they stopped so the same thing here, like essentially they say, we don't want the dollar anymore, you keep it at your own.
And the US is going to relinquish that without any kind of fight?
There's nothing they can do.
Military action?
Well, will there be more wars? That's a whole different question. Not really. I think it would be, if we see more war, it would be related to energy. It will not be related to the US dollar, per se.
And what happens? Does the Western world continue to use the dollar in this scenario? When we say a split, how do you see the split happening?
Well, the split will be East-West. It's that simple. I mean, like all the countries that are democratic, the West will be still using the dollar because there's really no alternative. And the East, either they will create a new currency or they will use a basket between the yuan, maybe the rupee, or maybe gold and a basket of commodities. Don't know yet.
Right. But you do seem to have pretty strong sense of conviction that this will happen, and this will happen within the next 5 years.
Yep, I totally.
You're not alone. Pierre, you're not alone. As I said, many people on the show have come onto Kitco News and have said that they do see potentially a central bank digital currency representing all of the fiat currencies of this new alliance. But because there isn't much trust in the other country's fiat currency, they will back it to commodities, gold playing a role there. Do you see silver perhaps being in this basket of commodities?
Silver has always been the poor man's gold, and I don't see it. It takes so much space in storage.
Yeah.
That I don't see silver becoming money. There's enough gold to be able to do what needs to be done. So at this point, I don't see. But silver will always be a monetary asset. I mean, silver is primarily a industrial mineral.
Right.
I mean, that's what it's used for, and I think it's going to continue to be. But, once in every 20 years, can it become a monetary asset? Yes.
So, Pierre, if in 5 years' time, half the world says we don't want dollars anymore, what does...
No. Well, it's not that they're not going to use dollar. They may still use dollar to do business with the U.S. or, China will still use the dollar, to trade with the U.S. and they will still use dollars to trade with Europe or euro, and they will still SWIFT. But to trade between themselves, they will not use the dollar. So
right.
let's be, the majority of trades will still be in dollars, but there will be a significant portion that will not be dollar-based.
What would that mean for the U.S. economy?
Well, in terms of the U.S. economy, I don't think it's going to mean much of anything. You're still going to have the trade and everything else. But in terms of the U.S. dollar, it will mean a lower dollar vis-a-vis a basket of currency, a much lower dollar. You're going to see dollar being repatriated. It means inflation.
Yeah.
That's what it means. And there's nothing the Fed can do about it. They can raise interest rate. There's nothing you can do about it.
We've had guests on the show that say we will have hyperinflation when all of these dollars come flooding back into the United States. That
I don't see that.
you don't see that as,
No.
as a problem.
No, I don't see that.
But you do see inflation, you said earlier in this conversation, at a sticky 10% for at least the next, you said in 2023, you still think it'll go up to about 10% and be at that way until 2024? Or?
Yeah, I think that, if you look at the period 24 to 25, 26, you're going to see inflation going back up. Now, is it going to go back up to 10%, 8%? There's a good chance of that, because of the flood of dollars coming back into the U.S. But we don't know if those money, how they're going to come back. That's still a big unknown.
Okay, so what does an investor do in this situation?
Well, I think that if personally, I want to be invested in gold, okay, and silver and commodities. I mean, oil and gas at 100%. I think that they're all undervalued at this point in time. And I want to be invested in gold and copper in particular, because copper is the critical metal of the future. Without copper, there's no electricity. Without electricity, we have no transportation, we have no communication. Think about it. It's like we don't have the lifestyle we have without copper.
So you're still more bullish in terms of appreciation on copper than you are on gold within the next 5 years?
Well, copper is a critical metal. Okay, gold is a monetary metal.
Right, but in terms of seeing a percentage increase, you think that copper is going to outperform gold within the next 5 years?
More than likely, yes. Over the next 5 years, yes.
So give me a copper price estimate for 5 years' time.
Oh, I think you could see $7.
For copper?
Yeah.
I mean, it's $4 per pound now,
Yeah.
So doubling, essentially.
Almost.
Yeah. Almost doubling within.
You got to be careful, because once you reach over $7, you're going to start to see some substitution.
Okay.
Okay, so I think between 5 and 7. But the difficulty with copper right now is the production is pretty well maxed out, and the industry is not putting enough money back into developing new projects. Not because they don't want to, but again, it's access and process. Is that new discoveries are far and few between, and then it takes 10 years to permit and build. It takes a long time.
And as we've discussed, governments are starting to realize this, but probably not soon enough.
Not soon enough.
And where do you see gold then in 5 years' time? If this new commodity-backed currency has been launched, what does that mean for gold?
Easily $2,300 to $2,400, if not much higher. I really am bullish on gold. Longer term, like 5 years out, I'm really bullish.
So 5 years at $2,400, that doesn't seem that much of an appreciation.
No, but invite me next year and I might have bigger numbers.
You may be even more bullish, more optimistic next year. All right.